across the road and never even look one way. I always seem to know the perfect thing to say, and I don't even wave at other cars when I pass by. Don't have the time, you know I'm such a special guy, and all my friends are telling me that I should be ashamed, but I'm not even listening, 'cause I'm never to blame. I spend a fortune, but I never pay the tab. I just don't give a damn when I make other people... Yes, welcome once again, ladies, gentlemen, children, anyone around the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Pete, and this is Studio Live Today, and this is The Feedback Loop, which is our weekly live show where we talk about everything about the home recording, the music industry, garage band, mobile recording, anything that's on your mind. If you haven't been around the channel here before, Studio Live Today is all about helping you create, record and release your best music. And our main topic today is all about social media and music. So what is the deal with social media and music? How do you leverage social media to make better music, to share your music, and to collaborate and improve upon your music, which I think is probably the most important thing about social media when it comes to music. Thank you to those who have joined me live. If you have any questions, I would love to answer your questions if I can, or at least attempt to. So let me know in the live chat here. If you're watching on the replay, you can interact with me through the week. You can send me emails. Email details are down in the description of all my videos, or you can head over to Facebook, fb.me/PeteJohnsMusic. Comment on the videos here. There are a heap of ways that you can get involved. But for those who are here live watching, say hello, let me know, make sure that my audio and video is coming through okay and that everything is ticking along, and let me know where you are watching from. I know that's a cliched question that everyone says on every live stream video, but it is actually interesting to know where folks are, because right here in Adelaide, South Australia, it is 6:30 a.m. It is Sunday morning, so yes, it's a very unusual time for me, but the reason for that is that I want to make sure that I can do this at a time that is convenient for, well, I was going to say everyone but those in Australia. So sorry, one day I will do an Australian live stream, but specifically for folks who are here, because I realize that not many people apart from myself really want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to watch a live stream. Anyway, as I mentioned, we're talking social media today. Hello to Mr. Leonard Higgins, who is here in the live stream and in the chat saying g'day. Up there in Canada, where I'm imagining it is fairly cold right now. We're coming into our summer here in Australia, of course, and I know that in the northern hemisphere that you folks are heading into winter, and I'm already seeing some reviews and some reports that there's some pretty cold weather and some wet and miserable and rainy. But for our American folks, Thanksgiving was only a couple of days a couple of days ago, so you're enjoying that, I'm sure, and having a little holiday break and getting into the holiday spirit. It's so deep in the holiday spirit that Home Alone was on TV last night. That's how I know that we're getting close to Christmas. Once Home Alone is on TV, I know that it's nearly at Christmas time, which is very cool. Minus 18, says Leonard, up in Canada. So yeah, a little bit chillier than what we have here, where it's around about 20 degrees Celsius. So yes, braving the weather there, of course. Who else have we got here on the live stream? We've got Tick Corn Korea, hello. And we've got Benedict Stewart, hello, coming from Scotland, hearing me loud and clear, excellent. Always love to hear that first person that says they're hearing me loud and clear, because yeah, I have the mixer all set up here and everything should be coming together okay, but I never quite know when, you people are audio people, you create music, you know that sometimes, there's one button that you haven't pushed, or there's one slider or fader that you haven't put in the right position, and then suddenly, yeah, everything goes bad. So I'm hoping that we will stay good for the remainder of this stream. As I mentioned, this is the feedback loop. For those that are just joining in, This is our live Q&A topic-based show where I talk about what you folks have been talking about during the week. So any questions that I've had on my previous live videos and not live videos, but previous videos during the week, I talk about those. And if anyone in the chat has any other questions that they would like to throw out there, then by all means do so, because yes, we've got a while here, and we're talking. Oh, we've got Mr. Mark Clift is here on the stream. Hello, Mark. And we do have an Australian. We've got iSpike who says, "G'day, Pete. 4:05 a.m." So he's in Western Australia, which is an additional 2.5 hours behind us here in Adelaide. So he's over there. Just purchased. Oh, so he's just purchased the GarageBand guides from Patrick Baird. So the GarageBandGuide.com, and he's an absolute beginner with GarageBand and looking to make music for his media songs coming out in 2019. Welcome aboard. This is what I love about GarageBand in particular, but about home recording, mobile recording, the ability for everyone to be involved. The barriers have been dropped. There are no longer any barriers to entry for creating music. Everyone has the ability to create music, to record music, to release music, and that's what I'm all about, and that's what I want to encourage folks to do. And yeah, plenty of people are continuing to do that. Every week I get another story and I meet another person who lets me know that they are either in the process of completing a song, they have just completed a song, or they've just released a song, or even an album. Yeah, it's amazing how many people are actually getting involved and creating music. And I think that yeah, everyone's kind of got a song in them. Everyone's there's very few people that have no sort of musical ability or no drive and determination to actually get some music done. So yeah, I love to hear things like iSpike here, who's got his 27-inch iMac and he's editing YouTube videos and looking forward to learning GarageBand. So well, they're two things that I've been doing a lot of. So definitely hit me up if you've got questions as you go along in your journey. But yeah, Patrick Baird and the GarageBand Guide, you can't go far wrong listening to what Patrick has to say. He knows his stuff. Okay, that was a big rant as I spill my water. So what we're here to talk about today is social media. It's because I've done a few videos in the last few weeks mostly around YouTube, because that's sort of my medium of choice, and but I do spend a lot of my time in other parts of social media. So I thought I would start the discussion here and talk a little bit about what I do in social media, what I guess what I've learnt, and let me preface this by saying that I'm by no means a social media expert. I'm as much of an expert as someone who's used something for a long time. So just like my tech savviness, my social media savviness comes from actual real world use. So no, I don't have a social marketing degree. I think they exist, but or any formal training. But you know, I've been using social media for a while, back in the MySpace days, which I think can probably qualify as the first social media. And MySpace was big into music. It was all about the music back in the day. So I've used social media for many years, 15 plus years, since MySpace came and went. And then Facebook has been around since, what, 2006 or 2005? So yeah, we've had a lot of different things. And then in more recent times, Twitter's not that recent, but Twitter, your Snapchat, your WeChat, oh, I'm looking at my list here. There's too many. There's things that I now don't understand. I feel a little bit old, because there's people that are commenting on things and telling me, hey, are you on? What's your WhatsApp number? And I say, I don't actually know what you're talking about. So, yeah, for those who are here live, and if you're watching on the replay, what is your social media story? I'd love to hear what got you into social media. Is it just that everyone else was doing it? Were you an early adopter? Were you back in the MySpace days? Do you remember the animated GIFs and the horrible front pages that everyone would put together for their pages with tracks of music that you could play in there? Yeah, let me know what that is. And also, I'm really keen to know, what are your tips? Because we've got, you know, hundreds, thousands of people that are on this channel that are all very savvy, and a lot of you folks know a lot more than I do, especially about social media. So I'm really keen to get your tips, your thoughts, your ideas about what works for you, what you like to do on social media as well, because there is plenty that can be learned. As soon as you stop learning, then you stop growing and you stop developing and you stop getting better. So everyone needs to continue learning, especially me. So, yeah, so like I said, Facebook is kind of the place that I hang out most of all. So a few of the folks here are from the GarageBand users Facebook group, which I'm one of the admins for, and I love hanging out over there, talking GarageBand with all the people there. I'm also part of a lot of other groups, the home recording studio folks group, the iPad musician group. So Facebook, for me, outside of... when people sort of start thinking Facebook, especially for their music, they're thinking, oh, you know what? I don't want to bug all my family and friends and tell them all about my music because they're going to get very bored and very sick of hearing from me and hearing what I have to say. And I think that's pretty valid. So there's a couple of things I'd say about that. One is that Facebook groups are amazing. There's a Facebook group for everything. There's a Facebook group for any hobby, any interest, anything that you can think of. So I'm a big NHL 19 or NHL ice hockey player on PlayStation 4. So there's groups about that I'm part of. And then obviously I'm part of a lot of music and recording groups. And then even for local things, so there's a South Australian songwriters where I live here in South Australia. There's Adelaide musicians. So you can find things that are very local. You can find things that are very global, and you can find absolute specific things. So like, for instance, LumaFusion, which is the video editing software I use on my iPhone and iPad, that has its own user group as well. And from that, I learned not only that LumaFusion is really cool, but then I've been able to sort of chat and talk with other people. And now I'm sort of sharing my content about LumaFusion with that group and helping other new users. So it really is this sort of rotation and this cycle of sort of learning, helping, growing. So I love all of the Facebook groups. And the second Facebook tip I have, and this one, some people might think, oh, would I really do that? But for your music, a great idea is to get a Facebook business page. You might be thinking, my music's not a business. I don't want a Facebook business page. Well, okay, you don't have to get a Facebook business page, but here's the advantage of a Facebook business page. And forget the business, just think of it as a separate page, like a band page or a musician page. I've got one for Pete John's Music, which is my site for sharing all of my music. So that's where whenever I've got a new song or I want to do a video about music or I want to share a post that's music specific, I share it there. It does a couple of things. It means that I can share that with not just my sort of family and friends and my actual Facebook friends, but other people can actually subscribe and join up to that and actually look at that content without having to sort of be connected, I guess, as an actual friend. And not to say that I wouldn't want to be friends with people that are into music as well, because I certainly am with a lot of folks, but it just means that you can have more of a public-facing view for your music. And secondly, you can invite your friends to like your music page, but they don't have to. So if you're really worried about annoying your friends, annoying your family by having your Facebook feed full of all this music stuff, and they're like, Pete, I love that you're passionate about your music, but I'm not. So if you could just pull back a little bit. So to save those unfriending situations and those awkward conversations, that's my bit of advice there, is a Facebook business page. And I'm working on a video at the moment. It's a bit hard because I already have one, but I'm going to do up a bit of a mock Facebook page for my band from the 90s, Scarpa, just to show you that if you did have a band or you were a musician, that you can create very easily a Facebook page. I won't even say business page, but you can create a Facebook page that's a separate entity, and then you can share your music, you can share your videos, you can do things from there. So they're probably my two biggest tips: is get into Facebook groups. They are awesome. And set yourself up a Facebook page just for your music. You'll thank me once you do those, because they're both really cool. Excuse me. So iSpike says, yeah, the socials are huge, but I'm quite busy with my YouTube channel and don't use many other socials. Yeah, I'm kind of the same. Like I do spend a lot of time on YouTube, and we will definitely talk YouTube as we go. Plans to, Nicebike plan to employ the service of a social media expert in the future to handle promotions. Yeah, it is. It's can be tough to do everything yourself. And I think that's a mistake a lot of people make, is that they want to be the experts in everything. And I'm very quickly learning that I'm not the expert in everything, and it's a big time spend if you're doing everything yourself. So if there are people that can help you out with things, if you can learn from people, whether it's on a paid basis where you're paying someone to actually assist you, or like I said, use those Facebook groups and sort of interact with folks there and learn from each other. I've done some things where I've recorded vocals for folks, I've recorded guitar parts, and other people have recorded parts for me. Dan Baker, amazing YouTuber, he's recorded violin parts for my song, which I'm still working on. Yes, I've been working on that project for like 2 months. It's that thing that when someone else is working on a project with you, you want to make it really good. And yeah, I'm spending too much time sort of tweaking and trying to make it perfect, where I need to just get on and do it. But yeah, I won't get too distracted by that. But yeah, I agree with that. Don't do everything yourself, and learn from other people, leverage other people, leverage other communities. Speaking of leveraging other communities, what other communities are there? Well, there's YouTube, and I won't spend a heap of time talking about YouTube, except to say that YouTube has 2 billion plus active monthly users. So if you're talking about social media and your music and how to actually get some coverage, some leverage, some exposure, all of those keywords that people want, then Facebook, then YouTube is definitely something that you want to be utilizing and checking out, because it's the biggest platform. It's actually the second biggest search engine in the world behind Google. So in terms of search traffic, it is the second. And that probably leads to the question, and this is universal for all social media, but YouTube in particular is how do you actually get people to watch your stuff, listen to your music, interact with your content? How do you actually get that sort of exposure from other people? What's going to make them click your stuff as opposed to other people's stuff? And it is really tough. And here's a couple of reasons. I'm going to tell you all the problems first, and then I'll give you a few solutions, because it's important to sort of know what you're up against when it comes to sharing things. And all of you who are musicians or who are music creators and releasing music are probably well aware of this. But yeah, the attention span of folks is decreasing. So from where we were before, where people would give you a bit of a go. So let's go back to the MySpace days, because I like to reminisce and use nostalgia. So if we go back to the MySpace days, what happened back then is that people would have a MySpace page, they would be sharing their music, and people would go on there on their desktop PC or their laptop maybe, and they would click on songs, and they would just sit there looking at no video and listening to a song. Fast forward 15, 20 years, everyone is on mobile devices, and here's a really weird thing. I don't know the exact statistic, but there is something like 50 to 60% of people that actually view content on their phone do it without the sound. So for a musician, that's a pretty depressing fact here, that people are scrolling through those social media feeds, they're scrolling their Instagrams, they're scrolling their Facebooks, they're scrolling through YouTube even, and they don't have their sound on. Like, what's going on there? People are watching videos without the sound. Like we've got the Vine, we've got the clips that people have on Snapchat. Like audio has decreased in priority and video has increased in priority when it comes to social media. And that makes it really tough for people sharing audio, because you're competing against people that are sharing video, or they're sharing sort of graphics or GIFs, or like all of the things that people want to watch. People want a bite-sized chunk of information that they can just jump on and watch and do their thing and then move on. And that makes it really, really tricky to actually get exposure for your audio. So for instance, a lot of folks say to me, how do I share my music? I want to share, say, directly from GarageBand to YouTube. And what you used to be able to do is sort of share your music to YouTube, and it would just be like a GarageBand logo and it would play your music. Now they removed that feature, and I don't think it was because of this. I think it was because Apple don't want to play nicely with YouTube, but or with Facebook for that matter. But you can't do that anymore. And I think the other reason for that is that people are not going to engage with that content. If it's just a picture of the GarageBand logo and you say, hey, check out my new song, it's unlikely someone's going to actually click on that. So what are they actually, what do you need to do then? So I said I'd tell you all the problems and then I'd give you some solutions. So, excuse me. So what, in my view, content is all about is this, well, not necessarily this, like you don't have to start a YouTube channel and do live streaming and talk about your music, but what people are looking for these days is something that is different. So there's plenty that's the same. There's plenty that they can listen to. We're in a world where Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play let you stream anything, any music, anytime. So music itself, just listening to a song, has become just a consumption. Like there's no actual sort of ceremony around, oh, here's a new track, I found it, I got it, even though I downloaded it. You don't have to do any of that anymore. Forget buying a record or a tape or a CD. Forget even having to go and download a song. It's just click play and play it, and then, oh, okay, I'll listen to it. And people listen to less and less of music too. They'll listen to like a 10-second chunk, and if it doesn't capture them, then they're on their way as well. So what can you do about that? Well, yes, you have to create quality songs. So that's number one, of course, create quality songs, make sure they sound good, make sure that your songwriting's up to scratch and you record them well, and then you get them out to your audience. But the other thing is that people now want to know more about the background. They want to know more about what you did to create the music. So they want to learn about the process, they want to learn about how you recorded it, and they want to learn more about you. So as opposed to back in the day where, you could be an artist and be this reclusive person that no one knew about, and you'd just put this music out there and then people would listen to it and they'd like it and they'd give you kudos and feedback. We don't really have that so much these days. It is about, and I'm going to use some pretty wanky catchphrases here, so forgive me, but it is about being an influencer. It is about actually putting out content and personal branding and self-marketing and all of those things that you've heard about, but you don't have to do them in a really in-your-face way. In fact, if you go too far the other way, then you're going to disengage people. So it's this sort of middle ground that you need to find where you need to produce engaging content, you need to publicize it and market it and promote it in a positive way. And the key thing is that it has to add value. So it has to add value to the other person. And I won't spend the whole hour talking about social media because I've got some other things here I want to chat about, and I've got some other questions that I want to talk to as well. But to me, the key thing around all of this is that if it's not adding value, and I think about YouTube, it's YouTube, it's not MeTube. So, and YouTube sort of, it says broadcast yourself. So I think YouTube in particular, but also other social media outlets have created this perception that it's all about pushing out your brand. It's all about pushing out what you want. And I think if you flip that around, what I've heard from other folks is that if you flip that around and you actually think about more what people are wanting, like what are they actually looking for? And even in music, what are they looking for? No, it doesn't mean you have to sell yourself out and that you have to, just do whatever you think is going to, sell records or be popular. But it just means finding the audience that are interested in what you have to say and what you have to produce, and then finding a way to tap into what they're looking for. And it could be how they actually create their music. So if you've got any other queries, any other feedback, any other comments about social media, I realize I haven't touched on a heap of different ones. So I don't use a lot of Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat, or any of the other platforms at the moment for music. I know a lot of folks who do use, particularly Instagram, is quite good. If you can create short videos and short bits of content, then you then that's the sort of thing that you need to be focusing on to get sort of more of an audience on those other platforms. Because again, keep in mind those attention spans and those things that you need to have. I have my daughter in the chat here. Hello, Jasmine. Welcome to the chat. Let's just, I'm just going to take a big look. iSpike's been active here, talking about loving to collaborate with others. Yeah, so definitely collaborating with other people is a big thing. And yes, iSpike has said that he's got to go, and he's given a big thumbs up, and now he can't leave. So I don't know whether that's a compliment or whether you just physically can't click the close button. Either way, thank you for your participation, and definitely join in and watch the rest of the replay if you get a chance to. Alrighty, let's the one final thing that I'm going to say, I'm going to have a quick drink and then I'm going to finish off on this topic. The one final thing that I'll say about social media is that it is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So if you are getting frustrated with how slowly things are going. So let's just say that you've been creating music for a year, you've put out an EP, maybe a few singles, you're sharing your music, you've built up maybe 100 people on a page, like you've got your own Facebook page, and you're just finding that it's a real grind and you're not getting there. Well, I often like to say it's even the overnight successes and people that have had instant, what looks like immediate success, it's taken a really long time to become an overnight success. So if you are creating music and you do get frustrated by how slowly it goes, and when you start sharing on social media how hard it is to get exposure and to get through to people, then just take heed in the fact that yes, it is a long process. You are competing for eyeballs with so much different content, so many different things, and and it is going to take a while to actually generate that exposure and generate that audience that is into your music, because not everyone's going to like everything you do. Like, yes, there are 2 billion people on YouTube, but there's probably only a couple of 100,000 that are interested in what I've got to say. Not even, maybe 50,000. Who knows? There's not a big market of everyone that wants to see everything. So just keep that in mind, and keep the positivity as you are continuing to create and share your music. Okay, we have so we have a question here. So what apps for mastering do you prefer? So this is from Enough, A-E-N-G. So for mastering, this is a good question, because I have been talking and doing some videos about mastering lately. So I do a lot of my recording and a lot of my producing of content on the iPad and the iPhone, so iOS content. So more recently, I've been using Final Touch, which is the app for the iPad. Now, it does cost, and I think it cost me around $30 Australian. So it's probably, around sort of $15 to $20 US, and not sure on the pounds or the euros or anything like that. But it is the best, in my humble opinion. It is the best mastering app for iPad. Now, it is only available on the iPad, not the iPhone. So keep that in mind if you are looking to use something like that. So that just is a full mastering suite. So you've got things like a limiter, a maximizer sort of plug in there. You've got reverb, you've got pre-EQ and post-EQ. So you've got sort of got 2 stages of EQ in there, and you can really sort of craft and customize the sounds to exactly what you want to get, which is really, really cool. The other things I've been using lately, there's a plugin by Fred Anton Corvest called the FAC Maxima, which is able to be used on GarageBand on the iPhone and the iPad. That works really, really well, and just gives you that sort of final polish on your songs. It just lifts the volume, and it gives you the additional sort of sound that you're looking for there. If you're on a Mac or a PC, I highly recommend Reaper, which is a digital audio workstation that I use on my PC. And Reaper is just a multi-track, it is a multi-track digital audio workstation, but all of the included plugins are really good. I find it really good for mastering, because you've got complete control. You can bring in VST plugins and other things that you want to do. So I still do quite a bit of mastering in Reaper on my PC as well, if I want a little bit more control and I want to use a PC interface, because iOS is nearly there. Like, don't get me wrong, in the last 5 years, iOS has gone from, what a lot of people perceived as like a bit of a practice or a bit of a toy sort of music recording option, whereas now I truly believe that iOS is the way of the future, and a lot of folks are producing some really, really good content just on iOS. So that is, that's my view on mastering. So what about you? I'll open the question up to folks here. What do you use to master your tracks? And if you're totally brand new to everything, mastering is the final touch. So if you think of your recording process in that you'll record something, so you'll create it usually. So you write a song, you'll record it, you'll then usually edit it, which just means sort of cleaning up and making sure all the tracks are right. You'll then mix those tracks. So mixing them just means combining them together into sort of one final mix where everything's at the right level and all your effects and your EQ are in there, and then you'll master it. So mastering is just taking that final mix and then adding a little bit of additional volume, usually through a limiter, just to make sure it's radio ready and it competes with other songs, and maybe some EQ changes and just some final tweaks. So it's really just that final polish that you're going to put on your track. So that is mastering. What have we got? I've got a couple of questions. So from Son Ek, what do I think would be the best way to learn how to play piano if you have no experience? This is an interesting one because, I do play piano. I didn't play piano, I played guitar in a piano recital yesterday. So my daughter, Jasmine, who's in the chat here, she and her little sister, were in a piano concert yesterday, did an amazing job. I actually played one of my songs in the concert, and then I accompanied them on We Wish You a Merry Christmas. It was all very cute and adorable, had a great time, everything was awesome. What was my point? So learning to play the piano. So I learnt 30 years. Oh my God, I'm old. I learned piano a long time ago. And back in those days, you'd learn with the Suzuki method, you'd do grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. I was bored senseless. I honestly think if I had a better piano teacher, I'd be a much better musician these days. Jasmine luckily has a really good piano teacher, and piano teachers these days are super engaging, super supportive, and make things super fun. So if you can engage, and a lot of piano teachers will actually take on adult students as well. So don't think that just because you're X age, you can't be a student. Anyone can be a student. In fact, I'm considering going back and learning some jazz piano because I've always wanted to be one of those guys that can play the jazz piano. So yeah, don't be afraid by that. In terms of sort of online solutions, there's a guy that I used to subscribe to, webpianoteacher.com, and he uses a different sort of method. So you don't learn sheet music, you don't learn chords, you kind of just learn what notes you play and how you actually bring things together. So yeah, so that's sort of one option. Check out webpianoteacher.com. And the other one is Musician. So Musician I've used for guitar, and I believe they now have a piano module. And Musician's cool because you can use it on your iPhone or your iPad, and you just sort of prop it up. It uses its microphone to listen to what you're playing. So yeah, you're not going to get all the technique advice, although they have videos and other things on there as well, but you do get a little bit of additional sort of support, and it will listen to you play, so you can learn to play through that. Cool. So yes, sorry, got a follow-up thing. So I want to be able to play the keys like a pro, and I have no experience, so I really want to know what you think is the best way to do so. Yeah, so that's probably my bits of advice. If you can get someone to help you, I think one-on-one learning is definitely really cool. So think about that, and look at some of those other websites and some of those apps. And hey, YouTube is great. If you search for learn piano on YouTube, you're probably going to come across some good content as well. And again, because we have so many people here, if other folks have suggestions for other things that they would suggest for learning the piano, then definitely let us know. We have Mr. Patrick Bear. We were talking about you, Patrick, earlier on. In fact, some iSpike over in WA, he may have gone now, he did have to leave, was talking that he's just bought some of your courses. So there you go. You have a customer right here in the chat. So he's mentioned that Isotope have a great mastering plugin that works well in GarageBand on Mac. So I don't use a Mac, as many of you know. I use a PC for my desktop and laptops, and then I use iOS for everything else. So whenever I have a Mac-related question, Mac OS GarageBand question especially, I send people straight to the GarageBand guide, because Patrick over there has a heap of good content all about GarageBand on the Mac, all about how to produce songs and how to do things like that. And you've probably got a mastering type tutorial, I'd imagine, Patrick. You've got every type of tutorial there. So head to thegaragebandguide.com and or just click Patrick. If you're in the live stream, Patrick's right here. Click on his channel. He said his ears were burning. There you go. Yes. Yeah. You must have some pretty good analytics software that, whenever anyone on a live stream mentions GarageBand, he just jumps in straight away, just like that. Cool. I think I missed a couple of things here. I'm just going to scroll back up and have a quick squiz. So Maury P, I always learn something from you when it comes to iOS GarageBand. Have you ever tried Band-in-a-Box software? I've got a story about Band-in-a-Box. So no, the short answer is no, and the longer answer is yes, many moons ago. So Band-in-a-Box, in all of its different incarnations, has been around for ever, probably 30 years. So Band-in-a-Box sort of started as a MIDI accompaniment software that I actually used on DOS. Now, anyone who's under the age of 30 probably doesn't actually know what DOS is or what I'm even talking about. But before Windows and before Windows PCs, PCs ran DOS, Disk Operating System. And I had a few music tools, and one of them happened to be Band-in-a-Box for DOS. And what Band-in-a-Box for DOS is that you would run this software, you would program in chords, and then it would play pretty cheesy MIDI keyboards and drums and very fake sounding guitars in the background. But for me, as I want to say 12, 13-year-old back in the day, it was amazing. Like, this software blew me away, because I could start writing songs and I just put C chord, F chord, G chord, C chord, and it would actually play that accompaniment. And I was amazed by that. And now, over the years, over the last 20, 30 years, Band-in-a-Box has I think it's changed companies that own it, but the actual brand Band-in-a-Box has continued. And and there's other ones now called, I can't think of the name of it. I've actually got it on, Patrick may know the name of it, but there's an iOS app that's similar, that's sort of a backing band type framework, and yeah, it's absolutely escaping me. But there's other sort of accompaniment type applications, and it's really cool. It's really cool because it just helps with that creativity. So for my friend before who was saying they're learning to play the piano, like being able to program in some backing chords and then be able to play along on your piano, that's something I used to do all the time when I was first learning guitar, to be able to program in sort of bass, program in some like drums and things, and then just have that. That was, yeah, really, really good. So Maury is saying Band in the Box has developed over the years now with zillions of real tracks, and it sounds good now. Yeah. So yeah, very, very cool. So my daughter's saying she's leaving now, Dad. No worries, Jazz. And yeah, I know you want me to buy a Mac. You also want me to buy an iPhone 10s, but not going to happen, hun. I know Christmas is around the corner, but not going to happen. iReal Pro, Maurice says. I don't think it's iReal Pro. It's it's got Band in the name. It's I'll try and find it on my phone in a moment. But yeah, I have heard, and I do have to check out Band in a Box again, because a lot of these actually have a whole bunch of actual real sample riffs, and the one I'm trying to think of sounds really, really good. There's a rock version of it. There's a blues version of it, and yeah, it's totally escaping me. Show one? No, it's not that one either. Anyway, what we're proving here is that there are heaps of great accompaniment apps out there, and I need to get all retro and check out Band in a Box again, because clearly it has evolved over the years and is now something very, very cool. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I say this to Patrick and to others a lot, that there's just so many things that I can try out. So Patrick was kind enough to share with me a license to what was it? The audio synth. Audio Kit Synth 1 D1, which I still haven't had a chance to fully play with. Like, there's so many different apps, there's so many different things out there to play with when it comes to music, that you could spend your whole time playing with different apps and playing with different plugins and not actually producing music. So Session Band, thank you. Okay, Session Band. So there you go. And again, I've used Session Band a little bit, but I haven't got into it in detail, so I knew Patrick would come through for me in the end. Session Band is something that I have tried out, and it seems to have some really high quality samples as well. So I think it's very much like Band in a Box. You program in your chords, and then you play along, and you have your very own session band backing you up. So thank you for that. That was, like I said, a good bit of nostalgia. Love nostalgia. And Patrick says it's amazing, which is probably talking either about Session Band or probably about the D1 synth, which I have to get into and play. I'm off to do the hockey announcing, and I always have a little bit of time after I've set up, so maybe I'll sit there and play with the synth. Hopefully I won't accidentally sort of do that during the game, although that could be pretty cool. Playing some live synth sounds instead of just rock music between plays at the ice hockey. Now I'm onto something. All right, maybe I'll take my MIDI keyboard and play it. Maybe not. All right. So, thank you. We've got Ken here from Dublin, who says, hello from Dublin. Keep up the good work, Ken7Neth. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you being here and for all of the support. What did we have here on my list? Because what do we have? We've got 20 minutes left to go, and then I have to pack up my my kit and then head off to the rink where I'm announcing the ice hockey today, which is always good times. I've had a heap of questions this week, and so I thought I would go on a little bit of a mini rant here about audio input and output, specifically when it comes to iOS, but same sort of things apply to Mac and PC, actually, to be honest. And the questions I'm getting from folks is that they're wanting to do different things with audio input and output. So one question I get a lot is, can I plug in a headset, so a headset microphone that has a microphone built in, but then override that with the onboard microphone? Now, you could argue, why would you actually want to do that? But yeah, if you say you've got a headset with microphone and the microphone's poor quality, you want to use the reasonably decent microphone on your iPad or your iPhone to record, short answer is you can't. So iOS really struggles with any sort of customizability of the audio inputs and outputs when you're plugging things in. So you can't, for instance, plug in a headset and say, just give me the headphones or just give me the microphone, but play the audio out the speaker. It's another thing someone else wanted to do. They wanted to use it as a microphone, but still have the audio playing out. And unfortunately, as soon as iOS says something's plugged in, it becomes the audio input and the audio output. So there's no way around that. And yeah, there's funky things like AUM and Audio Bus that can do some things with routing, but yeah, again, Apple just locked down that iOS routing for its actual audio. What I always suggest to folks is if you are looking to record audio, then a USB microphone is probably the first place to stop. Or to check out. I know Patrick's done some reviews on some USB microphones in the past, and I've looked at USB microphones as well from an iOS perspective. It is the best way to actually get sound. And when you are shopping for a USB microphone, I implore you to check that it has a built-in headphone jack, because the other question I got during this week, and I had to be the bearer of bad news, is that someone asked me, oh, I've got I think it's the Blue Snowball, like a really popular microphone, and there's a couple from like Audio Technica, like there's a few microphones that you'd think, hey, this is a good quality mic, that don't have a headphone jack, which means you can't monitor your audio. So if you were just doing something like this, like I don't have to hear my own voice coming through this, so if I was using a USB mic to do live streaming, then I'd be totally fine. But as soon as you're doing any sort of music or any sort of overdubbing, where you have to listen back to one part while you play another part, you need a headphone jack. So you need something to actually be able to monitor your audio. And once you plug in a USB microphone, that becomes the audio. So on a Mac or PC, I think you can route the audio around still and still use your headphone jack for that. But on an iPad or an iPhone, you can't. So if you plug a USB microphone in there, it becomes the input and the output, even if it doesn't have an output. And yes, that sucks, but yes, that's the way it is. So get something like the Samson Meteor that I have. The Blue Yeti is another good option. There's a heap of good USB mics. The Audio Technica AT2020 USB, I think, is one that a lot of folks use. But make sure it has a headphone jack. Otherwise, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. The next recommendation I'd have is that I always talk about is getting an audio interface. So as soon as you've got an audio interface, that actually has everything. And I don't have one handy or within reach. You probably know what it looks like. I talk about these all the time, but a USB audio interface allows you to actually plug in, usually an XLR and or a 1/4-inch jack, and then it has a full-size headphone output as well as usually speaker outputs and other things. So as soon as you're getting into the point where you want to be able to record and listen back to your audio, grab yourself a USB audio interface, because it's going to be the most flexible way to record, and you can get everything from very, very portable ones that are completely bus powered up to things like I use, like the Steinberg UR12 or a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, up to something that you literally have to plug in, and that's more like a desktop solution, like the Steinberg UR44 that I have here. So that is probably my tips. And if you do want to check out what I do recommend, this isn't sort of an ad, but it kind of is. Hey, it's nearly Cyber Monday. Got to throw something out there. If you go to studiolivetoday.com/gear, GEAR, that is my link that has all of the recommended stuff that I use. And yes, there's some affiliate links into Amazon there if you're the Amazon kind of person. But if you're in Australia, then I don't, just go to your retailer of choice, and same in the UK. So yes, I'm not very sophisticated in my affiliates at this stage. But yeah, check that out, because that's all the stuff that I have used or do use at the moment, and that I can recommend that works really well with iOS and with also with the Mac and the PC. Anything with a USB interface is cool. So Patrick's got a question here. Can you use Bluetooth headphones to monitor if there's not a jack, if there's no jack available on iOS? This is a good question, and I get asked that a lot as well, so thank you for adding to that. So Bluetooth headphones, there are some people I know that actually do use Bluetooth for their monitoring, for their mixing, and even for their mastering. So yes, you can use Bluetooth headphones to monitor if there's no jack available. So especially on the iPhone 7, 8, and 10, you're not going to have a headphone jack. On the new iPad Pro, iPad Pro 2018, you don't have a headphone jack. So a lot of folks saying Bluetooth is the way to go. Bluetooth, as Patrick knows as well, Bluetooth suffers from some fairly significant latency latency issues or sort of lag issues. So when you're recording, you want the signal that you're hearing to be as close to real time as possible. So a lot of audio interfaces actually have what is zero latency latency monitoring, which basically means it just routes the sound back into your headphones, doesn't go through the software, doesn't go through the computer or the iPad or the iPhone, and then it comes back to you. Something like Bluetooth is always going to have at least a little bit of latency that is going to impact your ability to actually record So if you're just listening back, it's not going to be much of a big deal. And if you're doing something like playing MIDI parts or doing electronic music that you can then quantize, not going to be much of a problem. Sometimes with some, especially with cheaper Bluetooth headphones, you get significant, I've heard up to almost a second latency, meaning if you play a guitar string, bink, then it goes, bounce, bounce, bounce. So that's not something that you want if you're actually recording, because you cannot play along in time with a song. It's distracting and it won't line up with the music once you've recorded it. So Bluetooth is okay, but I actually would recommend going to something that's using a lightning connection. The other thing is you can use for iOS, for iPads and iPhones with a lightning adapter, you can plug in lightning interfaces, or there's even some lightning specific microphones that you can actually plug in and use. So I don't think wireless is quite there, or Bluetooth is quite there, but that being said, it's not far away. I wouldn't be surprised if, within 6 months that we have Bluetooth that is so fast and such high quality that it's virtually the same, especially with the big shifts of iOS devices away from headphones and away from analog jacks entirely and into everything being lightning or USB-C now. That's the other thing. The new iPad doesn't even have a lightning adapter. It's got USB-C. So go figure. But yes, thank you for that, Patrick. Very, very good point, and something that I probably would have forgotten to talk about in line with that. So that is always the other option, is to go wireless. And speaking of which, I've lost my Bluetooth headphones, and I lost my phone battery, my portable battery, which was like a really cool one that had the built-in lightning connector. And anyway, that happened yesterday at the piano recital of all places. So yeah, go figure. What have we been looking at as well this week? So I talked a lot earlier in the week, in the last live stream and then through the week, about releasing music and releasing cover songs in particular. And I had a heap of folks come back to me talking about cover songs, talking about playing and releasing and, fair use and the rights to use cover songs. And there's a few people asked me about parody songs as well. So what is the link between a cover song and a parody song? That's a whole different kettle of fish that I'll need to cover in the future. And people were asking, someone actually asked about, can you do a how-to video that includes, say, how to do a guitar riff? So if you play Stairway to Heaven, well, don't play Stairway to Heaven. They're apparently very litigious in that camp. But if you play a particular song and it's a recognizable riff, will it be picked up? Well, short answer is yes, because Content ID just scans the music. And if you play it well enough and it's enough of the song for it to say this is part of that song, then there is a chance it's going to get picked up. It's less likely if you're only playing parts of a song, because it's not the whole song together. It's not going to actually be everything at the same time. So if it's just one part of a song, yeah, less likely. But if it's an intro to a song, so if you play like, what's a good example of one? So like maybe the opening to Hotel California on a couple of guitars, and you're sort of playing along to that, well, that can be quite distinct and quite easily recognizable. So yeah, that might get picked up, but you're not going to have probably the actual publishing companies coming after you for doing that sort of thing, because there's a heap of tutorial and how-to sites on the web that actually do exactly this. So it's unlikely that you're going to run into trouble from that. But the Content ID, the automated stuff that picks up on it, is probably the bigger concern if you're doing things like that. So I talked about releasing cover songs as well. You can release through DistroKid. You can release, I think Patrick mentioned that there's sites that have deals where they do all the cover songs, and then they have a completely separate sort of management arm that handles all the publishing and all the permissions and everything else. So yes, you look around, you're like, there's so many different cover song sites on YouTube. How do they get away with it? Well, they have a lot of people that do a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure that they can actually do it. And if it's just someone in their bedroom doing a cover, we've talked about this before, if they're choosing songs from that list that are monetizable, that you can do revenue sharing for, then you're okay. It's only if you're doing things that have no repurposing at all, where the artist has said you can't do it, that you can't actually do it. So so that's come up a little bit during the week in terms of producing cover songs and doing your own tutorials of cover songs. And it's funny, I was Andy Wells over on the Facebook users group on Facebook, GarageBand users group on Facebook, released an album this week, and I'm like, I should totally play his song as an intro to this. And then I'm like, actually, if he's released that album, then YouTube's got its Content ID. I'm probably going to get flagged, and then Andy's lawyers are going to come after me. Well, not necessarily his lawyers, but as soon as something's distributed and as soon as it's sort of owned, it's a good thing, because it means if other people use your stuff, you can tend to be protected. But yeah, it is also risky because it can then get flagged, even if you're trying to just sort of promote someone's material. So I didn't go with that. So Maury P says that some Korg keyboard interfaces have no Bluetooth lag on iOS. Excellent. I have heard good things about the Korg. I've never owned a Korg anything, to be honest, but I hear very, very good reports. So perhaps I need to check out some of the new Korg keyboard interfaces. Nano Key Studio Bluetooth and USB MIDI keyboard controller. I think I've looked at those in the past. They're a bit on the pricey side, but yeah, good recommendation if someone's after something that's sort of an all-in-one kind of solution. Hello, Julio Garcia, who's from El Salvador. Greetings to you. He's got a question here. Do you think GarageBand will add more drums, i.e. customizable snares or toms, in next generations of the app? I'd love to have more options for the drum set, as I have an example for guitars. For guitars. So, yeah, there's a couple of things around drums that a lot of folks in the GarageBand community have been asking for. Yeah, one is custom kits, because you can choose a drum kit, but then you are stuck with that drum kit. So to make your own custom kit that you can play together, where you can choose the snare, you can choose the toms, you can choose the cymbals, like you do in things like Addictive Drums, which is a plugin I use on PC, and there's a whole bunch of other drum apps. What's the other one? What's the one? Easy Drummer. There's a heap that people use that are which sound really good, by the way. All those virtual drummers, yeah, a lot of people look down their nose on virtual drums. I think virtual drums are cool. I think they do a good job. So yeah, there's a lot of options that you have with your drums. But to your questions, yeah, I'd love for there to be an option to bring that in. Patrick can probably tell us if they have that on Mac. I don't actually know. And the reason I ask that is that what we tend to see in iOS is things are developed on Mac and then they sort of float their way into iOS. So if something is on the Mac, then eventually it's going to be on iOS. We've seen that with some of the recent drummers. So the new songwriting drummers, they came directly from iOS. Beat Sequencer, the actual drummer itself didn't used to be on iOS. It was on Mac only, and then it's come across. So I'm definitely hoping for that. And the other thing that a lot of people are really hoping for is the Beat Sequencer to be able to do the same thing. So to bring in your own samples, and maybe for the drums as well. How cool would it be to bring in your own snare sample and have that as your snare sample on your drummer or on your drum kit? They're the sort of things that I would love to see. Now, in terms of if they're coming and when, there's a couple of schools of thought here, and I have zero inside knowledge, so I don't have any big connections. A lot of people talk to me and they're like, oh, can you tell Apple to bring this feature in on the net? I'm like, I think Patrick can attest to this. Getting any sort of input into Apple are very much a outward facing company. To get information in, I'm sure there are some people somewhere, maybe I just don't have the right connections, but I've never been able to actually talk to someone and suggest things that go in there. I'm sure there's beta testers out there, I'm sure there's people that do, but I'm not one of them. So the point I'm making is that there's two schools of thought around what's going to happen. One is that we'll get a very small incremental update. So at the moment we're 2.3.7, maybe we'll get 2.4 around Christmas time, and it might have a few new features, maybe a couple of new loops or a couple of new sets of loops or a new instrument or two, something like that. And then there's people that are telling me that that version 3 is coming and it's going to be massive and it's going to be a game changer and it's going to be like having Logic on your phone. And I'm a little bit dubious and skeptical about that, because I think as Patrick has mentioned in some of his videos in the past, Apple want you to use GarageBand, but they kind of want that to be the gateway drug into Logic, especially on the Mac. And whilst I don't have anything like that on iOS, I don't think they're going to be pushing a whole lot of development dollars into a free app. Maybe they do Logic for iOS and maybe they start charging for that so that people have a step-up option that's not Cubasis or that's not Audio or not one of the other applications. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think if there is a big new version of GarageBand, it'll probably be part of sort of more of a push to that whole creative suite. So things like iMovie haven't been updated for a while. So maybe they'll do a big like creator suite to get iOS creators back into the Apple framework. Because people like me, I use LumaFusion for my video editing. I don't use iMovie anymore. I've got a lot of pressure from folks saying, get onto Cubasis, get onto Aurea, get rid of GarageBand. It doesn't do enough things. So yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting topic and something that I like talking about. And I know that on the GarageBandGuide.com, Patrick's asked the same sort of questions before around what can come. So Patrick said, no, you can select different kits in GB on Mac, but not the drum types themselves. You can do this in Logic Pro's X Drum Designer. There you go. So yes, it's a Logic only. And then, yeah, Tim Cook and I aren't on speaking terms after he removed the headphone jack from the new iPad Pro. Yeah, so you were chatting, you were a regular basis with Tim Cook before? Yeah, you had the inside scoop. That's very cool. Yeah, so Maury says, does anyone have any opinion on upgrading to Logic from GarageBand Max? Seems like GarageBand does so much without the upgrade. And yeah, look, this is an interesting one, and I'll probably finish on this because we're nearly at our hour. So I'll finish off in a moment and thank everyone for their time here. But to finish on that one, yeah, I know a lot of people that produce a lot of good things, and I've ranted on this in the past, so this will be a very small version of this rant. But a lot of folks use GarageBand and like GarageBand and get what they need out of GarageBand. And then I see a lot of other people saying, oh, I need to move on from GarageBand. And before you move on from GarageBand, you need to ask yourself, why? So what is it that's missing from GarageBand? If you say, I'm moving on from GarageBand because I really need sends and receives, and I do so many things with plugins that I need to be able to send a whole bunch of plugins to a bus and then bus them back to another one. Yep, cool. If you use GarageBand on iOS and you're like, I desperately need a master track, I can't function without a master track, my workflow demands it, yes, move on to something else. If you're like, I'm producing music, but my music's not sounding good enough, I better upgrade, think really carefully, because I've mentioned it before, the quality of your sound is not dictated by the software with which you record it. I'll say that again because it's really important to understand. The quality of your sound, the quality of your music and your songs is not dictated by the software you use to record it. The hardware, yes. If you have a better interface or a better preamp or a better microphone or a better guitar, you're going to get a better sound. If you have different effects that you want to use isotope for your mastering, like Patrick suggested, you want to use a really high-end expensive reverb because it sounds really amazing, yes. The digital audio workstation software is recording ones and zeros. It is taking an analog signal and it's converting it into a digital signal. Now, ones and zeros don't sound any different whether they're recorded in Pro Tools or GarageBand or Logic or anything else. So that's my caveat, my warning to folks that saying, I need to upgrade to make my songs sound better. You're not going to get better songs. In fact, what you'll probably find is GarageBand holds your hand quite a bit. So, and what I mean by that, well, GarageBand has presets and defaults and things that will automatically add some of the things that you need to know that you need to add. So if you use a vocal preset in GarageBand, it's already got your compression, it's already got your reverb and some delay on there, and then you tweak those sounds. If you throw that into Pro Tools, you get an absolutely raw track. And a lot of folks have said to me after they've converted, it sounds so bad, like no, it doesn't sound like music anymore. It's just recording like this completely clean audio. I'm like, that's because you're recording on a completely blank track. Like GarageBand doesn't really have that workflow. So before you upgrade, think about why and think about what is missing from GarageBand that you need. And if you desperately need something different, then by all means do something different. But I've seen too many people upgrade, spend a bunch of money, and then they're producing music that sounds the same or worse, and they get really frustrated. Work on your craft first. Work on your ability to write good songs, to record them well, to look at Patrick's content, go to GarageBand Guide, watch my tutorials if you're on iOS, and learn how to get the best out of what you have now, and make sure that you are really pushing the absolute limits of what you've got now, and then look at how you can move on to something else. That's definitely my advice, and yeah, and you won't go wrong if you do that, because yeah, don't spend the money, don't spend the additional time learning that you could be using creating more music. So that is my final rant here for today. And Maury said, I just added Mainstage 3 for a relatively small amount and got a heap of extra loops and instruments. Yeah, I'm a bit jealous. I hear Mainstage is pretty cool on the Mac as well. Yeah, I need. That's the one thing I'm sort of missing with iOS is I used to use Sample Tank. Now I'm sort of importing my own samples quite often if I want to use something. If I need just like a riser, or if I need like an additional loop, or I need a cymbal swell or something, I'm just finding them online on a free site, or doing something like that I've showed in previous videos, and that's working out well. Alrighty, I wanted to say a big thank you to everyone for being here on the live stream. If you're watching on the replay, I hope you found this useful. We've talked social media, we've talked about audio interfaces and USB and 3.5mm jacks and how to get your audio in and out of things. We've had some great content here. We've talked band in a box and session band and some of the other cool applications that we can use here. We've talked about mastering as well. Mastering is that mysterious process at the end. I've had a great time, some great interaction here from the folks on the live stream. If you're watching on the replay, thank you for coming along. Please drop a comment down there. If you've got some value out of this content, drop a like on the video too. I would really appreciate that. I'll be back again through the week. We have a video almost every day here on the channel. We've got a lot more coming up, including some more mixing videos, including that video with Dan Baker's amazing strings that I do have to get back into. There is the music. That means it is past 7:30. It is time for us to tune out. So thank you again, folks. Until next time, I've been Pete. This is Studio Live today, and this has been the Feedback Loop. I'll see you next time.